Our next presentation is going to take us back into some science. It's important for us to determine what the role of science and research will be, looking at the example of Ghana's Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And so we're really honored to have with us Dr. Sylvester Addy, who is a senior research person, research scientist at the Crop Research Institute of the CSIR. And I'll hand over to him now to go ahead with his presentation, Dr. Addy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Convener. All protocol observed. I must admit that I went off a bit due to technology challenges. I think it was due to connectivity challenges, but I'm glad I'm back. I want to appreciate the speakers who have gone ahead. I think they made very cogent points concerning the topic at hand. I wish to indicate here that I am actually representing the Director General of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, as well as the Director for Crops Research Institute. And I wish to also indicate that the topic is so important, especially to Africa, and I believe the preceding speakers have done justice to it. My presentation will look at the role of research, respect of the topic. So if I may just get to my presentation, and then okay. So like you said, my name is Sylvester Addy. I'm a research scientist from the Crops Research Institute. I think the topic or the theme for the summit, it's so important, like I said earlier on, but it talks about Africa feeding the world. And I listened to one early speaker who alluded to the fact that for Africa to feed the world, we have to look inwards and first of all find out whether Africa can or will be able to feed itself first. So from this slide, I indicate that Africa must feed Africa first. And before Africa feeds Africa, Africa must be able to feed its member states. It also follows that Africa must be able to feed its communities. And Africa must be able to feed its families in order to be able to have what it takes to be able to feed the world. I think it makes a lot of logic. Now, I just want us to look at the reality, as some other speakers have indicated. Africa is heavily fragmented, with a number of countries with different colonial, affiliations, different languages, and the idea of individual countries, it's actually more emphasized than the whole of the Africa agenda. Now, in addition, while the population is projected to reach 9.7 billion by 2040, more than 50% of this increase is expected to come from Africa, and that's interesting. Now, another batch of reality, issues include the status of food security. That shows that 232.5 million people in Africa, which is actually about 20%, are undernourished, which is higher than in other regions of the developing world. We also have this reality that despite there is rapid urbanization, in addition, there's also an increasing and very growing rural population. In addition, Africa has 33 million family farms, which has less than 2 hectares, accounting for 80% of farms. But it's also important to note, however little, that only 3% of farms in Africa, have more than 10 acres. Now, food demand is estimated to be $313 billion, and it's growing and it's getting more diversified. Africa, and therefore the agriculture, and therefore the provision of food will continue to be the big issue. Before I even end on that chapter, I need to indicate that women provide 80% of labor on farms in sub-Saharan Africa. So we would not be able to leave the gender issues out if we want to really feed Africa and if we want to really feed the world. Now, looking at some challenges facing agriculture in Ghana and in Africa, and you would quickly identify rapid population growth as one, low fertile soils as the Dr. Bationo indicated, limited market access, low access to improved technology, poor infrastructure, especially in the rural areas where we have identified that most of the agriculture practices or industry in terms of growing and farming happens. Then climate change issues, which are deepening by the day, access to land and inputs, weak value chains, and I heard one of the speakers alluding to it. It's very, very important. Gender gaps in access to resources and high post-harvest losses, because it is also clear that in many instances, our farmers are able to produce so much, but they end up losing so much in their post-harvest times. And then there's also the low access to finance services and inadequate environment for attracting investors and private sector. Now, last 2-3 issues concern low capacity building, low market linkages, and of course, the low political will, stability, and investment from our governments. Now, Africa's population, as I said, is rising up, and Africa's agriculture is typified by what we call the smallholder, farming. And just like you have this woman in the picture using this, hoe, whereas in other developed countries, you have more mechanized farming. And the question is, can we be able to achieve this Africa feed the world, or even Africa feed itself? I believe that we can if we're able to address these challenges that I have enumerated. Now, what is really critical is that for me, I believe that agricultural development is actually at a crossroads of major strategic challenges, for the continent. We are at this crossroad, and this moment is really critical. The step or the action we take now will determine whether or not we'll be able to achieve this Africa feeding the world, or even Africa feeding Africa. And here I want to state that Africa can develop its agriculture while creating jobs, protecting natural resources, and ensuring high productivity. Agricultural value chains can also absorb a large number of young people entering into the labor market. And we also see to increasing resilience of farming systems, which becomes a priority. And also by integrating its markets, Africa can avoid dependence and guarantee its food security. One key thing here is that as it stands now, Africa still depends on food aid, foreign aid, food aid, to meet its food security issues. And even there's still a problem. Now, other opportunities, other potentials that we can look to, and be optimistic going forward. Yes. And as some of the speakers alluded to, there is this good portion of underused cultivable land, which I must admit that it's reducing steadily. And there's also the promising market that Africa has. When you look at the regional markets, even within Africa, there is a promising basket of market. There's also available technological methods or technologies that can be adopted, appropriately to rapidly boost productivity. And I must also indicate that by about 2030, food market in Africa will triple. So it is a sure market opportunity for our young people who want to get into agriculture. Now, it is also clear that we have a teeming youth population that can easily get into agriculture. In addition, there are a number of technologies that can play a role in Africa's agricultural transformation. And in this particular instance, I'm talking about the role that research or agricultural research can play in achievement of the goal of Africa feeding Africa and even feeding the world. I must indicate that there are new and existing technologies that as a research station or research stations in Africa, to combat biotic and abiotic stresses, also to increase crop productivity. These are things that we need to address so that we can be able to, produce enough to feed Africa and also to feed the world. And then we have technologies, and we are developing technologies that reduce post-harvest losses, also to improve soil fertility. I'm glad that the Dr. Bationo spoke before me, because plants feed a lot on the soil. And then we're also looking at the production of nutritious foods. And here I want to zero in and talk a little about where I'm coming from, which is the CSIR, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is actually the foremost national science and technology institution in Ghana. It was actually formed some months, or say a year after Ghana's independence, and is mandated to carry out scientific and technological research for national development. So it is no surprise that CSIR is a partner to this cause. Now, crops research is actually one of the 13 institutes of the CSIR, and we actually, concentrate on the development of, improved technologies, crop technologies. And we've been in existence for a long time. We've been in action for a long time. We've been supporting farmers. We've been supporting value chain actors for a long time. And so we believe that agricultural transformation is actually a process. It's not an event. It won't take one day. It's a process. And I believe we are somewhere in the process. Perhaps what we need to do is to, increase the pace of that process. But that process is supposed to lead to higher productivity on farms, and then commercially oriented farming, and then also to strengthen the link between the farming and other sectors of the economy. Now, Crops Research Institute, it was set up to become the center of excellence for agricultural research, innovation, and capacity building for development in Ghana. But I must also add that it has played a very critical role in the West African sub-region. We've had several projects that other countries, or the agricultural sector in other countries, had to depend on the technologies that Ghana has developed through the Crops Research Institute of the CSIR. And so our mission is actually to develop and disseminate demand-driven technologies and build capacity for sustainable food and industrial crops productivity, definitely to enhance livelihoods. And these are examples of the mandate crops that we work on. Cereals, maize and rice, legumes, cowpeas, soybean, groundnut, roots and tubers, the cassavas, the yams, the cocoa yams, and then horticultural crops, as well as industrial crops. And I must indicate that over the span of the existence of the Crops Research Institute, we've been able to develop and release about over 150 improved varieties of crops. And these improved varieties are being used across Ghana and across West Africa. Obantampa is one popular variety of maize that is still popular, although we have developed better and further improved varieties of maize. Now, we have a cross-section, an array of improved varieties of cassava yielding up to about 45 tons, per hectare, 60 tons. per hectare with specific uses. And I remember one of the speakers who preceded me mentioned that many a times, or so until now, many of our research findings or improved varieties have been on the shelf. Many are not really known, although gradually we are changing that narrative. Now we are doing a lot of work to push these technologies into the hands of farmers, and we are already seeing improvement in terms of productivity with farmers and farm families. So these are also a cross-section of our maize, our current maize and groundnut varieties that we've released. Now, it is important for us to appreciate that these varieties that are released, these improved varieties that are released based on some very important qualities or properties. First of all is the yield. We develop and release improved varieties that have high yielding properties. Drought tolerant. Tolerance also is also another key issue, especially in the context of climate change as we have it now. And then we develop crop varieties that are resistant and tolerant to crop disease, pest attacks, early maturing varieties, and also varieties that are meant to, improve the lot of those who are entering into agro-processing. And then I'm sure many will recall the quality protein maize, and then which has been used for a long time, and we're still improving upon them. And then we have the provitamin A, maize. We have now common beans and cowpeas that we have released that have a high iron content. Now, in addition to the development of improved crop varieties, crops research is engaged in an array of duties. One of it is to look into the productivity of farming systems for smallholder farmers, also to optimize the utilization of indigenous crops. You will agree with me that much of Africa, to some extent, produces crops that we export, and then the natives hardly consume so much. A key example is this cocoa that Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and then Nigeria and other countries produce to some extent. When you come to Ghana, the consumption of chocolate, the consumption of cocoa products is not as we expect. So crops research is also conducts research into the application of conventional and biotechnological technologies. And by that, I mean tissue culture and then marker-assisted breeding. We also are into the production of quality breeder and foundation seed. Of course, the seed value chain can only be strengthened if the starters that are the producers or the generators of the improved varieties are able to produce a good amount of breeder seed as well as foundation seed. And then if we are able to push them to certified seed producers who in turn produce certified seed and distribute to farmers. Currently, I'm working on an AGRA-sponsored program called the AGRA Early Generation Seed Program. And we have received some funding to produce some good quantity of quality breeder seed and foundation breeder seed for groundnuts and cowpeas. Some of these varieties for these two commodities were released some few years back, but never were able to get into the hands of farmers because of the challenge of funding. So we got funding, and now the value chain is receiving seed, breeder seed, and foundation seed of these crops. We also conduct research into socioeconomics of the use of and adoption of these improved varieties, as well as issues in respect of rural sociology. We also carry out a lot of capacity building and technology dissemination. Well, these are a number of projects that the Institute or the Council through the Institute has been able to work through or on, and some of them are still ongoing. The West Africa Agricultural Productivity Program was a West Africa oriented program, and we saw some of our improved varieties being sent to other places, Liberia and coal, to be used there, because the thing is, if we've been able to improve the varieties, and there is no real need for other African countries to go through the process again if there are already low-hanging fruits for them to pluck and then adopt. This is also some more projects that the Institute is working on. The last one is the modernization of agriculture in Ghana, MAG, which is a Canadian-sponsored program. It is supposed to help modernize agriculture in Ghana, and we are seeing some improvements as a result of the rollout of this program. Now, these are a number of international collaborating, institutions and agencies that the council through the institute work with. We work with AGRA, ITA, WADA, ATF, SIAT, GTZ, a number of them, ICRISAT, AV, RDC, CORAF, MBRAPA, and some universities from the US. And it is important because when it comes to technology, we must admit that Africa lags behind, the high notches of technology. So we need to collaborate with them so that we can run the race to help feed Africa. Now, there are some new initiatives that the Council, through its institutes, it's trying to roll out. And just recently, the Deputy Director General of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research.
But we can get back to him in a short while. Esther, if it would be a good idea, maybe you take off his presentation and we can invite Emmanuel to jump in and give us his 5-minute pitch. But Emmanuel, before you do that, I'd like to make everybody jealous a little bit. A short while ago, while the presentation was going on, I got some packages delivered to my office. This is Ghana coconut, chopped and frozen. It's usually shipped out to Waitrose supermarket in the UK and I think around the world. Very delicious coconut. It's done by the Ghanaian company Blue Skies. They also have, and this is like mango fingers going out to Asda, you can see, nicely packaged, frozen now. There's this package that also got delivered to my office a short while ago. Just to show examples of some agribusinesses from Ghana to the world. This is pineapple and mango and passion fruit going out to Tesco. You can see Tesco out there. So, and Mr. Emmanuel Asafo-Ejie is going to do right now a 5-minute short pitch on his agribusiness that he's hoping to take to the world also. Thank you very much, and take over the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. And thank you, Esther, for this wonderful presentation. I hope you can see my screen now. Yeah, so
yes,
okay. Thank you, Honorable Abu Karim, David Clark, and Dr. Adi, and the great presentations we've had so far. I am one of the players in terms of growing a superfood to the world. We may all have heard about tiger nuts. In Ghana, we call it atadwe. And then I know in Nigeria, they call it kunu, aka, ofio, and the rest. Now, for about 5 years now, I have picked this particular product, which is a superfood, and it's coming back. It's a paleo diet, which means our paleo ancestors lived on this particular product. I have a very short video that I'm going to play for us to watch and see what we've done with this product. So thank you very much for watching that video. It just explains what we've been doing with this product for the past about 5 years. So currently I live in Canada, but I go back and forth to Ghana to handle this particular project. We have some key challenges, and at the same time, we have some key opportunities. One of the key challenges we've had with this particular product is machinery. So we developed the first prototype machine ourselves at Swami Magazine. We did a second one. And then we involved some professors at a university in Ghana. None of those machinery really worked. So we are at a point where we're looking at scaling up, but we need some kind of machinery for this particular product. Surprisingly, it's not as easy on the market when it comes to this particular machinery. The other problem we also have is the organic certification, which Felix talked about, Global Gap. We are trying to get the certifications. But the other good problem we also have is the demand opportunities. So currently we grow, we process, and then we ship it to Canada, and then we distribute it to Canada and the US at the same time. But there are some serious buyers who want to see it not in a snack size pack as I have, but in large quantities, because there are other derivatives that they can use this particular product or tiger nut for. So we have about a 100-acre farm. I've had this farm since 2001, but for the past 5 years, I branched into the tiger nut production because when I was growing up, my grandma used to give this to us as a treat, and we all love it. So we farm, we do post-harvest management, we ship everything, go through all the processes that Mr. David talked about, we supply. But then there is an aspect, we pay a bit back to the source, in that every purchase that somebody buys here in North America, a portion go back to the farm and also the women and the mothers that we work with. And I'll talk more about that. Currently, our demand pattern is growing. There are stores that are trying to carry it. It hasn't been easy getting into these markets, but gradually we're realizing we are inching there. Yesterday, I was looking at the numbers. We are in about 138 stores across Canada and the US. But what I am really looking at is the wholesale market. Canada, US, Europe, I am in talks with companies that want to buy it in bulk. They want to buy in containers. I'm in talk with Nigerian companies that want it big. So we are trying to scale that up. The aspect that I talk about, which is we are also making sure we pay back to the source, because that is very dear to our heart. This is a school project we did. That's me and my wife there. And then, so we've built 2 teacher bungalows for the community that is close to our farm. And we engage our mothers and our wonderful women to help us expand the farm. There are times we've given them seed, so we also buy from them as well. Now, we are looking for partners to join us, partners that can share with this vision in terms of investment partners, and also to really help feed the world, because especially in this Corona era, these are the things that we will be looking for. It's a superfood that can help feed the world. It has a lot of great benefits. Our men in Ghana know what I'm talking about when I say that, and especially in Nigeria too. But there are so many benefits from tiger nuts. We have discovered over 17 different derivatives that we can develop and also, add that kind of value to it. So if you want to find more about this project, that we can go to Tiger Nuts World. It's our own website. And then also, if you want to connect, you can go through the World Trade Center in Accra, Esther and the team, and then we can start talking from there. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much. That was a very short one and very nice one. And I'm very happy that you decided after moving to Canada to look back where you came from and try to establish a business that will help the community. I wish you all the best of luck, and I wish that you find the partners that you need to scale up and to make this successful. We'll share your slides with all the participants, because I see there's a question here saying that it was a bit difficult to see your presentation. It's a comment. And then somebody also said, could you say more about the kind of machinery that's needed? I'm sure these are questions you can address in due course, because I'm sort of like in a hurry to listen to Nneka. Nneka is like one of our most prized presentations today, because she's going to talk about money, where to find the money for your agribusiness, what funding sources are available, and all that. I'm not going to take too much of your time. Nneka is the managing director of Vested World, an Africa-focused venture capital firm that delivers impact and returns in agriculture, consumer goods, and enabling technology with a focus on Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya. She has served on Vested World Investment Committee for 3 years, reviewing deals across sectors and geographies. And prior to that, she worked as the director and founder of Dalberg in Nigeria, and for over a decade, and also worked in countries like Senegal and Kenya as well, right? So Nneka, I see over here there's something about you being part of the Aspen Network for Development Entrepreneurs, the West African Steering Committee. I'd like to hand over to you now and ask you to share with us your presentation. And I have a lot of questions for you, so I'm going to wait till you're done. I'm sure that a lot of the audience will have questions for you as well.
Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time. I think the introduction, Adam, was a little too good, so I hope to live up to that. And hopefully you can all see the slides. I'll just sort of go through, but can see some nods from the speaker, so we should be all right. I'm going to talk a bit about my experience and the experience of some of our portfolio companies in terms of sourcing finance. And then I'm very happy afterwards, particularly for the agripreneurs, if you will, agribusinesses, to have separate conversations and just talk through different organizations that we've seen be most successful in helping to finance small and growing businesses in agriculture. So let's go from there. So first, quick on Vested World. We're an early stage investment fund manager, and we are looking at delivering exceptional and diversified returns to our investors while also having an impact specifically around the Sustainable Development Goals. And we were founded really to focus on that nexus between having an impact and then also having returns for our investors. And over the past 4 or 5 years or so, we've invested in a diverse portfolio of companies I've recently joined full-time, but have been on the investment committee of Vested World for the past few years, which has given me a good insight into a number of the investments that we've been able to make, as well as the portfolio companies and their performance. And then separate from Vested World, I've invested in about 5 different agribusiness companies across Africa, including in Nigeria, Cameroon, and Kenya, personally. And so I think that's also given me some insight into some of the challenges that very much exist in agriculture. And in my prior role, I led our agriculture and food security work at Dahlberg. And I think one of the things that really stands out is this question that I keep coming back to, and I spoke about a few months ago, this thing of what I say is that farming is in our DNA. I made a very bold statement a few months back during my TED Talk, which was that I come from 7 generations of farmers. And I think it's very important to really understand that across the continent, we're still looking at about 60% of the population that's rural. We're still, thankfully, have a huge agricultural potential in terms of having 60% of the world's total uncultivated arable land. And yet, I think hopefully with the free trade agreement, we'll see some additional moves on things like inter-Africa trade. And then there's this big question which remains in African finance and in agricultural finance around how can smallholder farmers, who are really the bulk of production on the continent, get access to finance? And I know many others will have covered this, but we have, let's say, 10 to 20% of smallholder farmers in any country that are semi-commercial or commercial, meaning they're participating actively, oftentimes in formal value chains. But we're seeing a very significant gap in terms of $450 billion global demand for smallholder financing. And this is from the Initiative for Smallholder Finance, ISF, compared to 10 to 20 billion USD in supply for financing. And in Africa, of course, that scales considerably. So you might have, for example, $100 billion demand and a much, much smaller supply in terms of smallholder financing. My perspective is really that agricultural SMEs are the key to helping unlock agricultural value chains. So I think one thing that I'm very clear on after many years of working is that local sourcing really does mean that we need to invest a bit later in the value chain, in part given that significant financing gap from the more traditional financial players. So whether that's the commercial banks or otherwise. I think the next piece, which is, I think, quite important, is that the SMEs can serve as that central point for ag finance because they are a market. So oftentimes they're either processing themselves or have large farms, which can then serve as just a physical aggregation point. But also they have that ability to de-risk some of the different investments in terms of they can actually finance the smallholder farmers that they've developed these long-term relationships with. So as I believe it was, so as Emmanuel was doing his presentation, and the fact that they've had this farm for a very long time, they came from this community, they have partnerships and relationships with smallholder farmers nearby, gives probably a financial institution a lot of comfort that he knows who might be more likely to repay and could actually then be on lending versus somebody who's coming from outside to try and understand what is the risk profile of the individual borrowers and this kind of thing. And then of course, Emmanuel has a farm and other assets, which might be more interesting to finance as well. So I think really it's just to give an overview to say, I do think SMEs are critical. And as we've been having conversations just over the last few years, one of the things I did was to help set up this I guess, initiative, if you will, called Grown Sustainably in Africa with IDH and Keba Koli and his team. And one of the things that we did was to really map a number of agricultural value chains across the continent. So this was everything from cassava, looking at ginger, we looked at maize, we looked at pretty much a number of crops to understand where were those SMEs who are most active, who could be seen as those points for sourcing for large companies, as well as for smallholder production as sort of an off-taker. And I think what I've seen all throughout is that they're critical, but of course, financing at that level is also then still required. One of the things now that I just want to quick highlights and comments around what actually works in agricultural financing for these growth stage SMEs is a few different things. So one, Partnerships, I think, are critical. And Sylvester's mentioned this previously, Dr. Adi, I think specifically looking at some of these investments do require, I think, especially for some of the unproven models, more innovative. And we've seen in ICT for development and specifically M-Agri, something like 50% of the investments going into African ICT for development are actually coming from donor financing compared to 50% coming from private financing. So I think there is definitely a role for blended finance, but that does require that sort of thinking about this investment in the long term rather than we're giving you money now, let's see what we get out. And I think the other one, particularly in agriculture, is that you need to understand what's the vision for the business. Because you could have a business that is not really at what I'm calling the growth stage. So they're really trying to get to 5-10x scale over the coming 5 to 10 years. Then the question is, what kind of financing do they need to fund their operations, perhaps to move into the next level of processing? But if you're thinking about a business that might then need to backwards integrate into production, as well as develop a much larger processing facility, you have to start looking at where does the business actually need financing? What type of financing do they need now? And what can they then take on in the future? And I think we've seen that with a number of our investments across the portfolio, whether that's in Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, or even in Ghana, this question about where as Vested World can we play a role versus where do we actually need to bring in other partners who can support our different businesses. And I'd say a large part of what the team does is really look at how we can bring in additional partnerships to our agribusinesses, especially on the financing front. And that has been both donor financing, that's more sort of softer capital, and then especially bringing in financing including from commercial banks. Last Friday, I was just on a phone call with one of the bankers for a company that's in our portfolio, just to understand if we can get a loan moved through the process in time for the processing period, which is now. The next one is, and I think this is quite critical for companies that are in this sort of fundraising stage. So this question about how do you actually show somebody your product and your business? I think Emmanuel's video was very useful in sort of demonstrating visually what's happening. I think Adam showing some of the products from Blue Sky is also very helpful as a starting point. But I think people, especially in agriculture, very different in a way than with some of the e-commerce businesses that I review or some of the other more I guess, services, online type of businesses, is there something about really coming to see the company in person so you can understand where this place is, talk to, for example, some of the different farmers, talk to each of the different business unit heads to understand what are their challenges, where they see opportunities, and get to know the team. So one of our companies has done these kind of stakeholder days where they invite even just 10, 15, 20 people that they've been having conversations with, and really present the business in a much richer way than a shorter pitch conversation could have. And that allows them to really understand what work you've done to date, where you're going in terms of your business, as well as what challenges that you see, and perhaps where partners might be able to come in and support. And then I think that the final one that I'll highlight is just around the timing. So in particular with agriculture, yes, we have the business cycles, but then there's also this challenge about crop cycles. And so really understanding where your business is in terms of the financing needs. And I think the other challenge is, of course, the investment process. So whether it's venture capital like with Vested World, or it's looking at a grant, or it's looking at a much larger investment from a bank or a private equity fund, oftentimes you might have a minimum of a 6-month process from the time, let's say, you have your first conversation to the time the money is actually coming in. And that means you have to start planning much, much earlier in the process in terms of how do you engage with the different financial service providers or the funds that you would like to engage with, and start to get to know them. One of the things that I've seen from the companies that I've invested in is they oftentimes reached out to me very early in their process. I mean, some of the companies were startups, and they said, you know, we have this vision. This is where we're planning to go. And so then it meant that they actually needed to start talking to some of the private equity funds who wouldn't probably invest in them for 5 years. They started to have those conversations then, maybe even 7 years down the line, but they started to have some of those conversations early. I think partly because, at least for now, from what we've been seeing, is there's not so many specific ag finance providers. And even for funds like ours, which do focus on agribusiness, consumer goods, and then also enabling technology, there's not many who would take that risk, if you will, and invest into agribusiness. So getting to know them can be helpful, but also because they'll have advice in terms of perhaps how you're structured and what they look for when they invest those 5 years down the line. So you can start to say, okay, do we have a CFO in place or not, and who might we be able to work with on, helping us get ready for investment? Do we have internally, what kind of processes do we have? Are we really trying to reach export markets or domestic? What's our market that we're really trying to focus on? These types of questions, but those conversations can help in terms of just getting positioned for future investment. And then I think the other one is just, of course, the crop cycle. So one of our investments is in a tomato processing facility, tomato processing company, and this is actually their processing facility that's gone live this month. And one of the things is that with tomato, at least in Nigeria, there's one crop cycle each year. And so if this facility is not ready to go this month, we're going to miss out on the entire year. And so it would really be until next year that the processing facility can be running. And so what that means is that you need to align all your financing to really make sure that you're running in terms of your line at the point of the crop cycle. And I think especially for the more perishable crops, that's critical. And so engaging with the financial partners and saying, okay, here's when we need financing by. What does your process look like, so that we can start in enough time with some buffers so that we know we can actually process whatever comes through, I think is also quite important. And I think I'm actually going to pause there in terms of my presentation. I think would love to connect with people who are looking at either financing agribusinesses, because we have a number in our portfolio and I have a number that I've personally invested in. And I think the other thing is that, of course, would love to connect with agribusinesses who are looking at fundraising or planning to fundraise over time, and very happy to take any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nneka. One of the objectives of our summit is to create these kind of partnerships that are important for pushing forward the transformational agenda for agriculture in Africa. And I see already that I've got some emails in my inbox asking people asking me to make connections. I think that, Nneka, we're going to keep you we're going to keep you as a permanent connection for all our future engagements, and hopefully we will rely on your support. Emmanuel, I see you are smiling
very,
a lot.
very happy to be a future connection. And I should mention, I didn't, but Ghana is one of our focus markets. So very, very happy to connect with Ghanaian entrepreneurs as well. And I'm normally based in Nigeria, in Lagos. So at some point when we all can, I will be coming to visit as well. So looking forward to meeting you all in person as well.
Well, next year in 2022, there's going to be the General Assembly of the World Trade Center Association in Accra. It's going to happen for the first time in Sub-Saharan Africa. So this is what happens. Every year, all the World Trade Centers converge on one city. There are about 340 World Trade Centers around the world, and they all come with business delegations. And then we try to see how we can create the B2B and the B2G engagements to foster trade and investment within that network. So there's going to be a big delegation coming to Ghana from all over the world. And we don't want to keep this to ourselves. We want to make it a presentation of Africa to the world. So the subject of the theme for that General Assembly will be Invest in Africa, Invest in the Future. And so we'll be looking to work with many of you again, because we are planning now on holding that General Assembly, working with many of you to see how we can showcase investment opportunities across Africa for potential investors from around the world. So Thank you very much. We have two more presentations to go, and the next one is by Dr. Siegfried Afezi Obresi from the Center for Scientific Research, Scientific and Industrial Research of Ghana. He is from the Animal Research Institute, and we wanted the last two presentations to follow each other, to happen almost at the same time, because after that there's going to be a presentation from the Animal Health Corridor. The president of the Animal Health Corridor of Kansas City will make a presentation, and so first of all, I'll hand over to Dr. Siegfried Afezi Obresi. Are you with us? Yes, yes, I see you now.
Yes, I'm here.
Over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm also coming from CSI Animal Research Institute. And just as my colleague, Dr. Adi started, animal research is one of the other part of CSI which is concerned with animal products, animal production, and animal technologies. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is my, please, next slide. Next slide, we will skip the order of presentation. My institute was established just as a parasitological and entomological research unit way back in 1957, but it was expanded in 1965 to take care of a wider mandate, which is to develop and transfer technologies to promote livestock and poultry production in Ghana. Then it was, the mission it took was to inspire efficiency and entrepreneurship in the Ghanaian livestock industry through technology development and innovative interventions. And so that we can use it to create food security and then create wealth as well. In 1996, it was realized that they have to make it, they have to govern it properly. So the CSI Act 521 of 1996 is now being used to govern the Animal Research Institute, which means that you can be safe to deal with us. You can sue us, and we can also sue, so you can do good business with us. We have stations in Fafraha, Pokwase, which is in the Greater Accra region, that is the coastal savannah. Then we have two stations in the northern region, that is Nyankpala and Dimon Chegbani. And then we have another station in Babile, which is in upper west region of the country. We are a government institution, and our sources of funding is, one, we get subvented funds from government. We also attract funds through competitive bidding for research projects. We also do some contract research, and we also do a lot of collaborations with other institutions, local and foreign. And then we do internally generated funds. We produce meat and other things from our farm so that we can use it to fund some of the projects we do. Our major competencies are in major livestock production, piggery, small ruminants, poultry. We have also gone into, we've worked very well in the animal nutrition research. We've done very well in animal disease control. We have now moved into micro livestock because we see that people are not getting enough lands. So, and those in the cities can do this micro livestock even in their backyard. So we are moving into micro livestock, that's the grass cutter and the rabbit production. We are already in cattle production and dairying. We produce milk products like yogurt and other things. We are also in animal breeding, and I'll tell you further. We are now also doing animal product processing, which is meat, egg, and skins and hides. We are working on them. We have a good pasture and range management experts in our area, and I can tell you that we, in the whole Ghana, we are the institution that is supplying pasture seeds and planting materials in the whole country. Sometimes we even spread to West Africa. We now, recently we have also gone into molecular biology and biotechnology. We are also represented in the livestock production and economics, business advisory services, and then we have moved into extension, training, capacity building, and in livestock production. This is where we think that that's the front for us to take the livestock technologies that we have developed to the farmers. Our achievements. Over the years, we have worked in areas like animal housing and animal breeding. Please, let's go to the next slide so that we can talk better with those things. Now, in the area of animal housing, we have now gone into the indigenous microorganism technology. And if you see this, the first slide on top, you see that there's a roof with transparent roofing sheets, and that is how the indigenous that's the EMO technology, that's how the building looks like. The guy spraying inside, that's where the inside, now we raise the pigs on sawdust, no more on concrete grounds. And this technology, we have found out that it reduces feed consumption and, for that matter, feed cost by almost about 30%. The animals grow faster, and the meat quality is far better in terms of fat content. You know, everybody is now shying away from fatty meat, and this technology reduces a lot of the fat in pig production. Of course, we also use nutrition to control the fat content. Down there, we see an indigenous house, which was developed using local materials, and this house is for small ruminants. People are keeping small ruminants, they are not keeping them in houses. So these animals are exposed to accidents, thefts, and all kinds of diseases. But if you keep your animals there, this is a simple house that can be constructed very cheaply by getting, but all those materials we use have to be treated. We used bamboo for roofing, and then twigs for everything, and you can treat this wood and use it, and it can stay for a very long time. On the bottom right is the micro livestock housing that we have developed, and this you can keep this in your backyard, and you can keep several animals in it, and to generate food, to generate income for yourself. Next slide, please. Yes, in the area of animal breeding, we have done a lot of work in the poultry sector, where we have a variety we are calling Aribro, Animal Research Institute broiler, so we call it Aribro. And this bird is being sold in Ghana, and some farms in Togo also were using this Aribro. We went in to work on sexing guinea fowls. It is a bit difficult to differentiate between the sex of guinea fowls at day old. So you cannot use the vent. And before, if you don't sex them early, before they get to the stage where you can identify the male from the females, they have already paired, because the guinea fowls, let me borrow the word, they marry. So if you don't sex them early, they will no more accept any other male. So the technology is to, sex them very early so that you can raise them separately, just as we do for the broiler and the layer chicks. We have also gone into the area of breeding small ruminants, and this work is going on. In fact, started in the Nyankpala station in the northern region. Down here in Accra, we have also done some crosses with Frisian and Sangal crosses to improve their milk yields and their growth rate. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello. Hello. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I was saying, we have also done some cattle crosses, We have crossed the Sanga and then the Frisian. The Sanga is a cross between the white flag, the humped and the unhumped. That's what we call the Sanga. And we have also crossed that. And the result is that we have animals with better growth rate and better milk yield. Please, next slide. In the area of nutrition, most of our soils lack a lot of minerals, and our small animals, small ruminants and cattle, they roam too much for feed. So we went in to develop the mineral lake, which we use to import. We have done a local one, and you can see the block there. Then we also thought of preserving the hay. Sometimes in the wet season, you have abundance of hay, but in the dry season, you don't have. So what if we harvest it and process in the way that we can preserve it so that in the dry season we can have it? So we came out with the pellets that we are seeing there. And then just beneath it on the right, you see the pellet in the form of a block, which is a bigger one. The balls you see there contains insect larvae. This is a new thrust, and the idea is that fish and the conventional protein sources are becoming expensive for us to use in livestock production. So we are going into the use of insect larvae, and this is insect larvae from the black soldier fly. The good news is that when we use it, it was able to reduce feed costs by over 20%. The birds grew faster. Feed conversion ratio was far better than conventional proteins. And the meat presentation was very good. We did a consumer preference, and the consumers preferred the meat produced from these larvae. Beneath the picture beneath it, the third row down there is the pellets that we have produced for the grass cutter and the rabbits. You know, grass cutters will want to hold their feet before they eat, so they don't normally like the mash. So we prepared these pellets for them. And then the usual hay that we also produce, we have samples of it down there for horses, for cattle, and those large animals also to feed on. Please, let's go to the pasture. Yes, this is where, this is an example of the pasture that we're doing. As I told you, we have the seeds and planting materials for most of the pasture species that are used. And we have a museum in the Pokwasi station, and we produce seeds. So anybody who wants seeds can come to us and buy. We also help to establish these pasture fields for farmers and for internationals who want to deal with us. And we also go ahead to do the range management. And of course, we do some consultancy services so that we can help others to establish their pasture fields. Please, next slide. Then we have also gone into animal product processing.
Okay, so we'll do your presentation now, and if we're able to get in touch with Dr. Sacred later, then we can have him finish his presentation as well. So
Okay.
kindly take it over from here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you again for the opportunity. I'm Kimberly Young. I'm the president of the Animal Health Corridor. The Kansas City Animal Health Corridor, we're an industry association based in the United States. We represent a region of the US that is right in the middle of the country. We cover 22 counties and 2 states. So it's a portion of the state of Kansas and a portion of the state of Missouri. Right in the middle of the United States is really kind of the heartland. This is an agricultural-based economy. This is where a lot of the crops and the animals are raised. And so really what our mission is to support the growth of nutrition companies, both pet food nutrition as well as food animal nutrition, pharmaceutical, vaccine, diagnostic. Also, because we're right in the middle of the country, we're equidistant from either coast. We have robust highway infrastructure, we have rail infrastructure, we have inland ports to get goods out to either coast and then also then out to the ports internationally. These are the companies that are on our board, and these are the companies that provide our funding. And you may recognize some of these brands. And what you'll notice is that many of these brands are competitors. And so what we do is we work on shared values where competitive companies say, you know what, there are global issues and global needs that are bigger than any one company. So there are areas where we can come together, work collaboratively, speak with one voice, and by doing that, we're all better and we're all stronger. So these are those 4 pillars that we focus on: innovation, public policy, engagement, and workforce. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go into a little bit more about one of the opportunities around innovation, but I'll tell you about the other 3 buckets at a high level. Workforce. The company, people are their biggest asset. And so we focus on really 2 areas, the interest gap and the skills gap. And with the skills gap, we're really looking at the pipeline and the workforce talent of today and making sure that we have those educational programs in place to make sure that companies have employees that they can hire that have the skill sets for a ready workforce today. But we also know that that whole next generation of talent, that pipeline, we need to grow. So we have initiatives that we are working at the high school level and even down into the middle school level, where we are raising the awareness of the career opportunities within animal health and agriculture. Many of the students in the United States, we did a survey a few years ago, and when we talked about animal health, they thought veterinarian. That is absolutely a great opportunity. That's a great career path, but there's many other opportunities within animal health and agriculture. And so we want to make sure that these students are aware of really the breadth and depth of career opportunities and the variety of educational levels. So there is a pathway into this industry if you have a high school degree, a certification, associates, a bachelor's, a postgraduate, a doctorate. So there's really all sorts of opportunities. And so we're working with high schools across the U.S. We work with 4-H, FFA and AFA are ag, high school and collegiate ag organizations in the United States. We also work with an organization in the U.S. called MANNERS, which stands for Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. And in the United States, we know that we need to do a better job of bringing in a more diverse workforce. So we are also going to populations there where they wouldn't traditionally think of agriculture as an opportunity. Public policy, as you know, it can be a highly regulated industry. So we work very closely with the lobbying and government relations groups within these companies, AHI, which is at our federal level, and then we have bioaffiliates in both of our states, to make sure that if there are policies that are made that are impacting the industry as a whole, that we can bring that voice of the industry to the table. Last year is a really good example. When the pandemic came and everything was starting to shut down, our federal government was looking at what needed to be essential, what needed to be, businesses needed to be kept open. And so we were able to, inform those policymakers on what services needed to continue to be provided, what were the distribution pathways to ensure that there was enough, protein, there was enough food that was going out, and pet food as well, making sure that all of those channels were open. So again, that was a significant effort that we were able to help coordinate and make sure that nothing was shut down that was essential to keep the food supply going. Industry engagement, this is all the work that we do for marketing and promotion, events, connections. So if there are companies that are looking, for a service, or they're looking for some sort of expertise, that we can serve as that conduit and kind of be that matchmaker. Innovation. We do a lot around supporting entrepreneurs and early stage companies, and I'd like to share a little bit more about one of the events that we host every year. We host an investment forum every year. It's part of our annual events. This year it's August the 24th through the 26th, and what we do is during the summit, we have a variety of programming. We'll have on-demand webinars, we'll have live programming, but we have these emerging company presentations. So we accept applications every year, and that you can see here, you can apply online. You just go to our website. We're currently accepting applications. We accept applications from companies all over the world. We know that there are innovative companies, innovative technologies located everywhere. So, we want to make sure that we're finding really the best ideas. There's no fee to apply, and it's a competitive process. We have a selection committee that reviews all the applications. We've had, over the past decade that we've been hosting this event, we've had, over 1,000 applications come in. We usually accept anywhere from 12 to 15 companies every year. And those companies that are accepted to present at the forum, sorry, I don't think my slide's moving, are then put through kind of a mini boot camp, if you will. And they're paired with a coach, and so that coach is from industry, and we will look at what that company's technology is and what their needs are. Those coaches will help them prepare an investor deck, a presentation. We will have practice rounds where these entrepreneurs will practice their presentation to all of the coaches. They'll get feedback, they'll do another practice presentation. The final presentations are recorded, so they're right now it's all virtual. We hope to be back in person again next year. So there's no need to, all of this is done virtually, no need to travel or anything. And once that final presentation is recorded, it is uploaded into our event platform. And during the course of that summit of August 24th through the 26th, we usually have about 500 attendees. And this will be industry executives, venture capital, private equity, angel investors, service providers. And for the emerging company portion, people are looking at these presentations and they are looking at investing in companies, maybe doing development agreements. They could be looking for a licensing deal. So it's really a business maker. As part of the summit, there is one-to-one business partnering. So attendees are able to schedule, pre-schedule before the event starts, 30-minute meetings with other attendees. To date, companies have raised over 400 million. There have been many deals, licensing deals, acquisitions that have come out of the presentation. Applications are open until April 5th. And so if there are any companies that are really looking at getting that industry connection or capital, this would be a great opportunity. It is not required to be located in the United States or to ever plan to be located. Like I said, we have companies that present at our event from all over the world. And so with that is our contact information. You know, reach out. We would be happy to have any one-on-one meetings or answer any questions. Again, the application is online. There's no fee to apply. There is, if you're accepted, there is a 500 USD fee, and that provides you 2 registrations to the summit, plus all of the coaching and the investor profile takeaway.
Thank you very much. You know, one of the very key reasons why we wanted so much to have you speak to us today was because we wanted to see what we could learn from the success of your program. And one of the things that I noticed, which I also discussed with Dr. Adi from the CSIR a few weeks ago, was the strong collaboration with the private sector. When I look at your partner institutions, there's so many private entities, companies that are involved in animal health, from feed producers to veterinary input producers, and they are partners with you. And then when I look at your output, you're dealing with a lot of, you're open up to a lot of small businesses, SMEs that are also in the sector, and you're inviting them over and you're working with them. And you actually have a platform where SMEs can also actually register their innovative ideas and raise funds. And I'm happy that this is open to companies from all over the world. So some of these brilliant innovations that are coming out of the CSIR Animal Research Institute could also be packaged and also uploaded on your platform. It's really interesting, and I hope that both the audience and all of us participating will be able to take advantage of some of these opportunities to promote some innovative African ideas as well. I would like to invite someone now to give us a short pitch before we round up the summit. And then, but before he does that, I'd like to acknowledge the International Fertilizer Development Center, one of our key partners, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and we're grateful for your support. We got the support of some of our World Trade Center partners, World Trade Center Leeuwarden, World Trade Center Twente, World Trade Center St. Louis, World Trade Center Winnipeg, World Trade Center Kansas City. Thank you all for supporting us and making this work. We are part of the association, the global network, as I said earlier, and you know, in all our events, we try to rely on the power of the network. Over the next year or so, one of the big objectives of World Trade Center Accra would be to carry the World Trade Center network across the African continent. So we're hoping to be able to open a World Trade Center in Freetown, Sierra Leone. We're looking to open a World Trade Center in Addis Ababa. There's a new World Trade Center that just came up in Abidjan. There's an active World Trade Center in Algiers. And so we're looking for partners to go around and do other World Trade Centers across the continent. And so if you are in a city that you think will need an uplift in terms of trade and investment, and you want to rely on the World Trade Center network, you should reach out to World Trade Center Accra, and we'll work with you to see how we can bring a license to your city and to help to uplift your city from a trade and investment perspective. I would like to invite now the Royal Citrus Growers You have a 5-minute pitch. Tell us about your business. Hit the road running. Thank you. It's difficult to hear you. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Esther.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Esther, please, can you share my slide for me, Esther?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Can you share this slide? All right, I'm calling from Royal Citrus Growers. We are into address. So
I think Godwin is joining us from the farm where the network is not good. Godwin, maybe you should turn off your video. Maybe you should turn off your video. Godwin, can you hear me? Turn off your video to manage the bandwidth.
Links today. All right. All right. All right. Please, can you now hear me?
Yes, it's much better. Please go ahead.
All right. All right. Thanks. So we started with seedlings. Now we've entered into juice making. Please, next slide. Our biggest problem is about post-harvest loss. In fact, to solve this problem, we need about 500,000 to generate revenue over 1 million Ghana cedis for the first 3 years. Next slide, please. In fact, here we have a lot of citrus farming here, and our biggest challenge is post-harvest loss. Normally, at the peak season, farmers face this, and we can't get buyers for our produce. So we saw that it's an opportunity for us to enter into processing. Please, next slide. So this is the solution to add value into our products. In fact, we have about 200 acres land across our catchment area, and we lost more than, let's say, 200 to 300,000 each year because of post-harvest loss. So this is good opportunity for us to help the other farmers also over here. Please, next slide. So the product citrus is one of the biggest and valued products in the domestic and also international markets. And during this COVID time, if you have orange juice 1 cup, you are okay for the rest of the day for your vitamin C to fight this COVID. Next slide. All right, so our demo, how to produce this product step by step, is 1, cleaning and grading, extraction of the juice, concentration and reconstitution, then pasteurization and packing, then quality control. Next slide. Our market opportunity. Now, we started by supplying the fruit to Movenpick and Novotel in Accra and some of the shops in Accra. But later we saw that they demand more of the juice than the fruit itself. So we started to do that. Please, next slide. In fact, there are about 106 hotels in Accra only. Each of them, if they consume 1,000 gallons of our juice per year, we are looking at 50,000 cedis averagely. We also get, maybe we can do it in small bottles, like the brew juice one, and sell. If we sell even 5 cedis per bottle, and about 10% of Ghanaians consume our product even per year, we are looking to about 15,000
15 million
Ghana cedis per year. So this is a great, 50 million, yeah, a year. So this is one of the greatest opportunity investment area for us to look at. Please, next slide. What we have been able to do to now, from the small sales from the seedlings, we've been able to extend our farm, buy some processing machine, buy some 4 plots of land, and also we've hired and renovate some area that we have started the processing. Please, next slide. Purpose of the founding is to establish a factory that can produce the juice in large quantities and also expand our farm. Please, next slide. Our team, we have Mr. Yada Grover. He's an organic man. He exports organic cocoa to Europe and others, and he'll be able to help us if we want to expand it, export it to Europe. We have Madam Lydia, his extension, who guide us on the production also. We have Pamela, he is into juice making, and he also help us so much. Then we have a Giacomo says, who is farm hand that takes care of the farm. Our expansion and exit plan is that we want to expand this one, the existing one, then later try to boost confidence of the investors by enlarging our business and also creating more opportunities for them to see. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our program today. But thank you very much. I see that some people are asking questions about how to connect and network with many of the agribusinesses. And what I'd like to say is that World Trade Center Accra is very happy to serve as a bridge for this network.
All right, good.
So if there's an organization you'd like to get in touch with, drop us an email, info@wtcaccra.com.
Okay.
info@wtcaccra.com.
WTC
in the chat box.
Okay.
Dr. Sigfred, I think you have not unmuted your mic. I just typed our email in the chat box. So send us an email, tell us who you want to get in touch with, and we'll do the connection. Yeah, and also there's also another point on whether we should focus some time on health and safety hazards associated with the agriculture industry. I think that we'll look at this in the next Africa Feeding the World Summit, which will be like 12 months from today. Might be one of the focus points of our future engagements. So on that note, I'd like to thank Your Excellency, Dr. Abubakar Karim, Acting Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, and Food Security, Sierra Leone. Thank you very much for, first of all, your immense support, your insightful presentation, and also the honor of having you with us most of the day today.